Welcome to the NXT Podcast, your home for weekly NXT reviews and insight.
The beautiful part of NXT is that when one dream ends, another dream begins.
Find all of your NXT news, recaps, and analysis right here. So with that being said, we only have one question for you.
Are you ready?
We thought so. Let's get the show started right now.
What's going on, guys? It is Chris again for another NXT review. It is Wednesday, the 26th of February, day before Super Showdown. We will be talking about that. I'm going to give you my predictions on who I think is going to win. Also, we got some more setup in this episode in relation to TakeOver. A couple matches mentioned for it. One that will decide a future number one contender. Another one, obviously it didn't say it's going to be a match, but another one that relates to NXT UK. Appreciate everyone who follows, listens to the show, interacts. You can follow me on Twitter at the CO Place to Go. Wherever you hear us, whether it's Speaker, Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify, radio.com, any of those places. Appreciate the listen. And like I said, anyone, if you got any questions, comments, anything that you got to say, please feel free to go through on Twitter. Let me know on there. Ask questions, positive, negative, I don't care. Let's chat wrestling. So, in the intro, Triple H says, one dream ends, another one begins. And we saw another vignette this week for Killer Kross, who is brand new to the NXT brand, to the WWE brand in general. He's going to be coming here soon. Killer Kross is someone I'm looking forward to watching in the ring. Big indie guy. Someone who's a very entertaining wrestler. Just really looking forward to that. Absolutely looking forward to that. So that kind of tied in. I was listening to the intro and it wasn't even something I was going to mention. But as the intro was playing, that's like one of the first things that came to mind. Let's talk about this week in wrestling. Like I said, we're going to cover the Super Showdown, but we're going to cover that a little bit later. There, obviously something I'm going to say in this relates to that, but we're going to cover that specifically after we do the NXT review. So if you're looking for that, it's going to be after the week's review. This week on Raw, you had AJ Styles and Aleister Black start a feud, which is relatively confusing to me because of all the talk about The Undertaker versus AJ Styles at WrestleMania, which again, if you've been listening, you heard I will be missing that weekend of wrestling completely, which completely saddens me. First WrestleMania I'm going to miss in, I don't even know, 20 years probably. And that means watching it live or even next day. I won't be able to watch it. Well, I can watch WrestleMania the next day, I think, but I won't be able to watch TakeOver for 2 to 3 days. So I don't think I'll be covering that TakeOver, which makes me sad because I love it. I mean, I could do it. It's going to be late. But yeah, AJ Styles and Aleister Black started a feud. It's one of those things where, the OC attacks. Aleister Black calls out AJ Styles. That's been going on for, a week or two. Strange timing, of course, like we said. You also have Beth Phoenix announced for Raw next week. Edge is supposed to return in a few weeks. Undertaker's going to end up popping up on Raw as well. Clearly to start a WrestleMania lead for a match. And specifically, we had talked about Sting and Sting getting ready in ring shape. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what happens tomorrow in Saudi Arabia? We shall see. It's 9 a.m. for me. When the show starts, I will already be at work, so I am going to miss that. But it is something I'm going to put on TV in the following nights to fully catch up on Super Showdown. Beth Phoenix, like I said, announced Raw. She's going to talk about Edge, how he's doing. Does Orton show up and do something crazy? You had on Monday Night Raw, you had Kevin Owens talking about him, how he's such an Edge fan and how he watched him as a fan when he retired and when he came back at Royal Rumble. He was in the back waiting for his own intro to the Rumble and was watching as a fan, it really sets up that whole, Orton being the king of the heels right now, I would have to say. Looking on Twitter, you see a lot of stuff all the time, and there's somebody on there who does a lot of polls. Like, there's 4 events. Who do you think is the biggest heel? What do you think the biggest, screw job in a match, in a feud, things like that. And one of them was, who's the biggest heel? And a couple of them, Charlotte Flair was on there, or Shayna Baszler, that's not realistic. Orton was on there. And, another person was MJF. And MJF, obviously young wrestler in AEW. The program that he has right now with Cody Rhodes, I think is absolutely fantastic. The lashing segment was great. Obviously, to me, it puts Cody Rhodes through the roof. Not that he needs to be, but it puts him through the roof. MJF, of course, looking like a strong heel, but right now, Randy Orton taking out Matt Hardy, taking out Edge. I'm kind of concerned for Beth Phoenix. I think something's going to happen there, one way or another, to negatively affect her, which will bring Edge back with a vengeance, and they will end up announcing their match for WrestleMania in Tampa. I fully believe that that's where this goes. That, and on top of all the Seth Rollins stuff, the Monday Night Messiah, as he wants to call himself, had his own referee or something like that on Raw. Like, I don't know. He was in he got who was it? Kevin Owens got pinned exceptionally quick by Randy Orton. Orton looks stunned. He leaves the ring. Kevin Owens goes to fight the ref, rips off the ref's shirt, and it's got that Monday Night Messiah shirt on. You got Seth Rollins in the distance saying, I don't know this guy. So he gets put through a table by Kevin Owens, and they kept calling him one of his disciples. Again, I don't follow Monday Night Raw enough to fully understand that storyline. Like, I get a lot of the other storylines, the Edge, Orton, Hardy. I get that storyline where that's going, but this Monday Night Messiah stuff, I haven't really put enough time and effort into understanding it. So, one of his disciples was the ref and gets taken out. On SmackDown, you had Goldberg taking out The Fiend with the spear, laughing at him in the ring, laughing, as he disappeared after, and just the laugh track music was being played. Again, we're going to talk about this later on, so I don't want to go too much into it, but, Goldberg versus The Fiend at Super Showdown, we will see. But, yeah, I'm going to talk more about that after. Random news, we already talked about The Undertaker, who is going to be in Saudi Arabia. Does this set up the AJ feud? And like I said before, where does AJ Styles and Aleister Black, where does that feud fit in? Also, Rusev has backed out of the Saudi match, which I fully agree, after seeing the issues that they had transportation-wise and things like that, as a performer, I think I would be a little skeptical about going as well. There's a lot of guys who went last time who did not go or will not go this time. But Rusev did back out of one of the big, it's like the Gauntlet Trophy match, in that Rey Mysterio fills in for him. So Rey Mysterio is going over to Saudi Arabia, so no Rusev. Next big thing in news was Kathy Kelly, who she left. It was after TakeOver Portland. She had an interview. I'm pretty much going to read this interview. It was with Maria Menounos, and she explained what drove that decision. This is straight from Kathy Kelly in the interview from Maria Menounos. Kathy Kelly says, I just knew it was the right time, and really feeling like I'd planted a lot of seeds. There's so many things that I want to do in my life. I think especially with WWE's schedule, it's so time consuming because you're traveling so much. Being me, I wanted to do everything. So I wanted to work as much as possible, which also meant being away from LA, which I had just moved to. It wouldn't have allowed me to continue to do the other things or work on the other things I wanted to do. Now, you listen to a lot of people, who want to do side projects and do things like that, and the WWE schedule is pretty brutal. Like, unless you're a top guy or whatever the situation is, you're always on the road. You don't have those Randy Orton schedules, the Rey Mysterio schedules, Jeff Hardy when he was healthy type schedules. You're working every show. And Kathy Kelly was in that same mold where she worked a lot, and she just wants to do a lot of other things. Do I think she'll be back at some point? Just like anything in wrestling, you never say never. So I think it's quite possible. But it's the first time she spoke, other than just, putting some tweets out there saying, I miss it already, and, when something's been a part of your life for so long, it is something you're going to miss. But I think the ease that she is going to feel by not having to do that schedule, I think is going to be absolutely, fantastic and healthy. You got to have a good work-life balance. And with Kathy Kelly, she's got the great work, but she wants to do other types of work, and to then coexist with, everyday life is going to be very difficult in WWE. Now we're going to move on to our birthday segment, our standard birthday segment that we do. Big one yesterday was Ric Flair. I did not cover that, but big happy birthday to the Nature Boy. And not to be, I don't know, negative or anything like that. I find it amazing with, all the health issues and things that he has, that he is still alive. I just find it absolutely amazing. But, happy birthday to Ric Flair yesterday. But today's birthday is James Mitchell. If you don't know who James Mitchell is, he's a former manager in WCW who's in ECW in TNA. I know him most from TNA when he worked with Abyss. He was, I believe it was called the Reverend James Mitchell at the time. Back in the day, he was a huge comic book fan. He's still a huge comic fan. And parts of his gimmick are from the Punisher version that was in one of the Spider-Man series, the Green Goblin, and the Joker. He worked one show in WWE. That was the ECW One Night Stand, if I'm not mistaken. And he came back a few years later, 4 or 5 years later, and he was looking to do to try out, but they were going to have him pay $1,000 for the tryout. He decided not to do it. James Mitchell turned 55. That is the only birthday of the day. A little bit light on birthdays. It was 2 weeks ago. There was like 5 or 6. It was pretty intense. But this week only one. And James Mitchell's it. Like I said yesterday, happy birthday, Ric Flair, Nature Boy, living the dream, still doing him. So we're going to get on to what happened last week. Let's get into NXT. Like I said, we had a big Super Showdown highlight and prediction for the matches coming up after this. Last week's episode, if you remember right, to me it was a very mediocre episode. Only match that really stood out to me was Jordan Devlin and Lio Rush, which I thought was absolutely fantastic for the Cruiserweight Championship. Jordan Devlin, the more he is on, the better I feel he looks. Big time promo, which sets up a match which I thought potentially could be the main event until they announced Charlotte, of course. Was Tommaso Ciampa had an interview basically letting him know that he needs to get rid of Johnny Gargano. That's the only way that he can proceed with things. Austin Theory came out and Ciampa, interrupted. It just ended up being like a brawl. Austin Theory got taken out by Tommaso Ciampa, which leads to the match tonight. So another match that kind of came through, and it's 2 out of 3 weeks. Cameron Grimes gets put into a match based on something that happens earlier in the day. Dominic Dijakovic versus Cameron Grimes is your opening match for the evening. It was a good match. There was a spot at the end, right at the end of the match, when Dijakovic did a moonsault to the floor. Now, I don't know, obviously, when Damian Priest came out and interfered, which is something that happened. The ref didn't see it. Cameron Grimes was down in the ring. When Dijakovic landed that moonsault, he actually looked like he bent his knee up pretty backward. It was like backwards, bent up. I don't want to say he over-rotated, but dude's 6'7", 280 pounds or whatever he is. He's gigantic. That may not be the best move for you. But he landed it, and to me, it looked like it could be a potentially legit injury. Now, based on Damian Priest coming out, like I started to say before, when Damian Priest came out, he took a nightstick and hit him directly in the back of that knee, which took him out, made him, as Dijakovic was getting ready to get back in the ring, gets taken out, falls outside. There is almost a count out. It was like 9.85 seconds. Super close. He gets back in the ring. but Grimes hits him with the cave-in for the win. Cameron Grimes gets the win. Now remember, last week, Dijakovic faced Keith Lee at TakeOver. But now you have him then losing about 9 to 10 days later to Cameron Grimes. Now, is it setting up a feud with Damian Priest, who are two gigantic guys? I think 166, 167. They're both huge. To me, it was a weird finish because I feel like kind of the injury could be potential, like there's potential there for a true injury just with the way he fell. Whether that's the case or not, I do hope not. The match for me got like a 2.75 out of 5, maybe 3 at the most. Wasn't a huge fan at the end. And my only hope is that they're not going to go through with a triple threat with Damian Priest, Dijakovic, and Lee. I hope they kind of run a feud where Lee can face a few random people here or there. Damian Priest maybe and Dijakovic do a feud. I'm huge on Damian Priest. I'm still middle of the road on Dijakovic. Like I don't know how I feel about him. But I just hope they don't do a triple threat. There's so many potentials for triple threats and things like that on Raw, SmackDown, NXT. I think there's still possibility for Belair, Charlotte, and Ripley at a certain point. Obviously not at WrestleMania or a TakeOver. But there is for some point. So I hope they kind of steer clear of that. It takes away, I think, some of the positivity in some matches when you do this triple threat type thing. And I just think that with those 3 gigantic men, it would be a waste. All right, so then we have the next match, which was Mia Yim versus Xia Li. I've stated, I think, previously on both. Like, I'm a Xia Li fan. I would like to see more of her actually get more than 3-minute matches. I think Xia Li's, pretty good. When Xia Li debuted last year, Mia Yim beat her in her TV debut, which I don't really like. I don't like people losing in their debuts, unless it's, someone who's always going to be bound for the mid-card and things like that. But this match didn't last more than probably 3 minutes, which kind of, Bianca Belair came out in the middle of a match last week, interrupted. Match ended up being essentially awful. You can't interrupt in the middle of a match and have that match still turn out okay. But in the middle of this match, it was some decent back and forth. To me, Mia Yim looks really slow. Like, I feel like a lot of her moves need to, like, they take time to progress. They take time to get to where they're supposed to be. And I am not a huge fan of that personally. Mia Yim is okay, but there's, on the list of people who are, in line for that championship shot, she is way, way low. This match, to be honest, like I said, all the different things, I feel like 1 out of 5, it was just not a good match. Dakota Kai comes out, creates a distraction for Mia Yim, as she says, like, you took me out of the War Games, and then I took my spot back from you. Now it's time that we, discuss this. Whatever she said. Like, Dakota Kai don't pay a ton of attention to. Xia Li gets the cradle for the win. So Xia Li does get the win. The match had potential if it continued. Like I said, I'd like to see a little more of Xia Li's offense. Dakota Kai's promo, I was okay with it, but could it have been done after the match? And then post-match, Raquel Gonzalez, who is with Dakota Kai, comes out. She's like her muscle, if you want to call it that. She came in the ring and just beat down Mia Yim, beat down Xia Li, who came to Mia Yim's defense. Do I see a potential tag team match coming up here shortly? 100%. Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez versus Mia and Xia Li, I could 100% see. We'll see if it comes down to that, but that's basically setting it up. So, when it comes to next week, there's a big steel cage match. I still think that Raquel Gonzalez is going to find some way to interfere in that match. Next match that was on tonight was Tommaso Ciampa and Austin Theory, a match that originally, when it was mentioned, I thought could potentially be the main event. I mean, Austin Theory, anytime he's been on, I think has looked great. I think he, as a Evolve champion and such, I think that he looks great in the ring. Every match that he's had with different people that he has wrestled, he's been given time to shine. And this match was no different. For me, this match, it was about a 3 out of 5 match. It was about 10 to 15 minutes. I don't even know the time. Tommaso Ciampa does get the win after some good back and forth. This match had a lot of good back and forth in it. This was a good match to watch, and I would watch it again. Just because I kind of tuned out a little bit during the match. But honestly, there was a lot of strikes, a lot of trading back and forth, a lot of counters. The match did exactly what it should have done. Obviously, Tommaso Ciampa winning was what you needed to happen, trying to keep one of your main baby faces now strong. But where I'm going to give it an extra half to go up to 3.5 was what happened post-match. Right after the match, Johnny Gargano attacked, started beating up Ciampa in the corner. Of course, Ciampa returns a favor. Austin Theory gets involved again, and it would have been nice if he went after Gargano, and then we could have, Gargano's got no, backup with anybody, but Theory gets involved. Ciampa takes him out again. As he's turning back around to face Gargano, Ciampa gets hit with a super kick. And then he picks him up off the floor, hits him with another super kick. Then he sits on the apron, classic Gargano style, sitting on the apron outside the ring, slowly claps, which obviously gets the audience going. The crowd was between Johnny Wrestling chants and, Johnny Sucks chants. Got that little clap going, and he throws Ciampa on the ground in what I believe is going to set up like a huge last time ever or last man standing or some type of stipulation match at TakeOver Tampa. He circles the TakeOver Tampa logo that is on the ground right around a downed Tommaso Ciampa. I personally think that this feud has had some of the best matches that NXT has seen in the last couple years. I'll even throw it back last 3 years. I would say with these two, they've had some of the best matches that has been in NXT. But it's like, how many times can you do the same match and keep up the emotion and the momentum? But with these two guys, I feel like the history between them and things like that, I think it's 100% going to deliver. And it's one of those matches to really look forward to on that TakeOver card. Next match you have is Killian Dane and Bronson Reed. This is a match between two guys who are a combined, 600 pounds, 700 pounds, maybe closer to 700 pounds. Both these guys did moves that they probably shouldn't be doing, jumping off the top rope. Bronson Reed, dives with a suicide dive outside the ring on the Killian Dane. Things that guys this size shouldn't be doing. For me, this match was about a 2.5 out of 5. It was a pretty short match, about 5 minutes. Reed ends up countering the Vader bomb. Hit him with a bunch. He ends up getting back on top. Dane hit a huge superplex that he almost didn't turn Bronson Reed around enough in time. They did land a little rough. I think Killian Dane getting the win was the right call. Bronson Reed is a good guy for who he is. He's early card, early matches only at this point. But Killian Dane needed the win. You got to keep him strong because he came in, what is he, Scottish, right? He's a Scottish, I don't want to use Drew McIntyre's phrase, but Scottish psychopath. He came in like a savage and then pretty much just loses. Like, he doesn't get wins in feuds. He doesn't do any of that stuff. He squashes people, but he doesn't get wins against big time guys. So big win for Killian Dane. It's nice to see big guys flying around, but safety first. That was a super close superplex. Next match, Grizzled Young Veterans versus Forgotten Sons. You know, when I look at these teams, they remind me a lot of each other in terms of look, which I thought this was a great match. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5, and so I want to preface me saying it was a good match. You know, it was 10 to 15 minutes. It just went really long. Like, I feel if they cut, and I know I've made some comments about different matches in the last couple weeks, you know, saying the same thing, but I feel like this match just went a little bit too long. You know, the Grizzled Young Veterans are a great team. Like, they're great for NXT UK, and you know, I'm the first to admit that I don't really watch a lot of NXT UK. I know certain guys, but not everybody. To me, there wasn't a lot of. It was just a wrestling match. It was like something that you would get on. And I'm going to throw it out there because I've been to them too. At an NXT live event, you want to see how teams work together, and then you put them together on TV. This to me was one of the matches that was like kind of like, okay, can these guys face each other? Difference is one of them's UK and one's American. The fact that the Forgotten Sons were supposed to be the baby faces here didn't really work because they're not baby faces. You know, so you know, a lot of people don't want to cheer for them because they're not the guys you want to cheer for. But you know, it was UK versus America, and that was the direction you wanted to go. Grizzled Young Veterans, the matches that they've had with better tag teams have been a lot better. I think they're one of those teams that they really rely on their opponent to, I don't know, to really stand out and to look good. Again, decent match, a little too long. Would have liked to see a little bit more with potentially a different team. But Forgotten Sons were put in a pretty tough spot to be baby faces when they're 100% not baby faces. So that then moves us on to our main event. Clearly, you know who that is. It is Charlotte Flair versus Bianca Belair in the main event. This match was one, in my opinion, worth watching again. Between this one and the Ciampa Theory match, those are going to be your two matches to really watch again. Or watch in general for the first time if you haven't seen it. I gave it a 3 out of 5. It was a 10 to 15 minute match, nothing crazy. You know, I feel like last week when it was Roderick Strong versus Velveteen Dream. It was Velveteen Dream's first televised match back in quite a while due to injury. He looked different, you know. Velveteen Dream was as solid as it gets. I mean, I remember people talking about call him up. I think he'd get lost like everybody else does when they go up to the main roster. And, you know, I apologize that I called the main roster. Johnny Gargano went on TMZ saying how, you know, they are part of the main roster. They are the best thing in wrestling in WWE, and I completely agree with them. AEW has been super hot the last few weeks, but NXT, in terms of WWE, to me, is putting out the best quality product. And last week, Velveteen Dream, who's a huge part of NXT, I felt like he was off. He just didn't look like his normal self. And tonight, I don't know why, Bianca Belair looked exactly the same. I feel like she didn't step up to the challenge of Charlotte. Charlotte can have her worst match and it'll look better than quite a few people's best match. She's just naturally talented. You know what to expect. You know what you're getting when you get Charlotte in a match. It was a good match, but I just felt like we could have got a little bit more for Bianca Belair. You know, this wasn't the Bianca Belair of the Royal Rumble. It didn't have the same feeling of that, but it was still, for what it was still a good match. I still gave it a 3 out of 5 because Charlotte Flair, you know, being back in NXT, it's like the good old days of the 4 horsewomen that were down there, and it was nice. It was nice little nostalgia, if you will. But yeah, it was Bianca needed more. After the match, she gets beaten down. Rhea comes out, but does not make the save, kind of allows it to happen, which we discussed triple threats. I just hope they don't go the triple threat route. I would like to see just Rhea and Charlotte in a one-on-one, and not to have Belair. Have Belair be a post feud, you know, have another match there, or move on to the Io Shirai's, you know, or I mean anybody else. Who wins the cage match next week? They should be in line. But I felt bad for Bianca Belair tonight. It was about a 90% chance that she wasn't going to win. I mean, you almost knew Charlotte was going to win this match. But to me, it just could have been a little bit better showing. But still a match to watch. So we're going to go over what stood out tonight. Then we're going to go into some of the promos that I haven't even discussed that happened tonight. And then we're going to go, where do we go from here? Which is when we're going to talk about Super Showdown. This week, I would say Charlotte and Bianca is one that stood out. Also, Tommaso Ciampa and Austin Theory. Tonight was a very average show, very similar to last week's. I don't want to ruin one of the promos, which I'm about to talk about, but there was, on the show, there is something that is getting set up, a potential UK Championship match that comes out of tonight. Also, they announced a second steel cage match for next week. I don't know what that is going to do, but you have the potential for, I don't know, I feel like there wouldn't be a second cage match being put on there if AEW, their cage match was so strong, because that was strong. That was really strong. Cody Rhodes with a huge move off the top, which, if anybody else does that, they break their legs, hips, back, die. Is all kinds of different possibilities, and I just hope that they're not pushing these cage matches for that. But in terms of promos were pretty good this week. Finn Balor came out and said he's not a moves guy, office guy. When the bell rings, he is the guy. He said he's built Japan, Mexico, Intercontinental Championship, Universal Champion, he's NXT. He was the first ever Universal Champion, so I get that when he and he's had a very successful independent career. It's one of those things where he's been good for a long time. He even says that he's not peaking for WrestleMania season. He's at his peak for 20 years. Imperium comes out, or part of Imperium, I should say. Eichner and Barthel. Barthel says something Balor hasn't done, and that's be NXT UK champion. And that Walter sends his regards. Finn ends up taking him out, but it's just too much. And so it's one of those things where it's like, Imperium beats Balor down. To me, that's potentially setting up Walter versus Balor at possibly TakeOver. Maybe WrestleMania. I don't know, but I think it sets it up for possibly a great match. Next promo of the night we kind of already discussed when we discussed Steel Cages. It was Velveteen Dream. Velveteen Dream comes out. It's actually more of just a video package. He was in front of a mirror. He talked about beating Roderick Strong last week, but it said it's not enough because Roderick Strong in the Undisputed Era broke his back. He wants Strong to experience a steel cage. He basically asks William Regal, hey, Will, let's make it happen. Later on, Undisputed Era cuts a promo. Strong says he agrees to the cage match. Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly jokes with Pete Dunne and Matt Riddle's names and how they got lucky at TakeOver Portland, and Kyle O'Reilly puts themselves over. And Adam Cole said that they're all going to win their titles back, and all the gold's going to come back to the Undisputed Era, and then they're the most dominant faction in NXT, which is 100% true. They are. Imperium is really strong on the UK side, but it's one of those things where it's like, Undisputed Era, I think they're better when they have belts, to be honest. Like it fits the cocky persona, and I think are they going to get him back? I don't believe so. Like I don't see Keith Lee losing in the North American Championship anytime soon. So where do we go from here? In relation to NXT specific, William Regal tonight announced that starting next week there's going to be a tournament, a women's tournament, to determine who the next number one contender is. So they're going to have some qualifying matches. And at TakeOver Tampa, they're going to have a number one contenders ladder match for the number one contendership match. And obviously, Rhea Ripley's not going to be defending her belt on that pay-per-view, because the day after, or 2 days after, however they're doing it this year, you're going to have the Charlotte versus Rhea for the NXT Women's Championship. So, that's going to be interesting. And that starts next week. Also next week, you have 2 cage matches. One of them being Dakota Kai versus Tegan Nox, that I'm super excited and looking forward to. The other one's Velveteen Dream and Roddy Strong. I really do hope Roderick Strong and Velveteen Dream have a better showing than they did last week. And in a cage, you're going to get one of 2 ways. One, it potentially changes some people's offense, because a lot of people with the suicide dives and the moonsaults out of the ring and things like that, a lot of people have that, whereas in a cage you don't have that opportunity, because it restricts any outside of the ring activity. So I'm looking forward to it. I would have been okay with just Dakota Kai and Tegan Nox in a different stipulation with the other 2, or maybe do it 2 weeks in a row, but they're both doing it next week. So now my most anticipated part of the night is the Super Showdown predictions. So I'm just going to go down the list, and then I'm going to say what it is, and I'm going to actually give like a little bit of a reason why I think each one's going to happen. WWE Championship match, Brock Lesnar versus Ricochet. There's no chance in hell Brock Lesnar loses, not to Ricochet. They're setting up a huge Lesnar versus McIntyre match at WrestleMania, where I think McIntyre's going to go over and will end up being, I don't want to say the new face, but the new face of the WWE Championship for, in my opinion, a good long time to come. Next match, SmackDown Women's Championship, Bayley versus Naomi. This match, I think Bayley's going to win. I don't see Naomi being a strong character in the women's division. I mean, I think kids love her. She's fun. The blue, the black light, neon type uniform or costume she wears. But I think Bayley gets the win. I think it's going to set up Bayley versus Sasha Banks, which I think would be a much anticipated match at WrestleMania. I think that's fantastic. Next match, SmackDown Tag Team Championship. You got the New Day versus Miz and John Morrison. I just think Miz and John Morrison have been put into a position to where they are looking strong. They have some momentum. They have face value. They have name value. I think Miz and John Morrison do win this match. Next is the Raw Tag Team Champions, Seth Rollins and just plain old Murphy, no more Buddy Murphy, versus Street Profits. To me, this is kind of like Lesnar Ricochet. I don't see a reason that Seth Rollins and Murphy would lose. If they do, I don't think it would be to the Street Profits. Will there be some interference? Quite possibly. I mean, Samoa Joe got recently suspended on a wellness violation. I don't see there being a reason to pull the belts off of Rollins and Murphy. The Monday Night Messiah, I think, comes out with the win. Next match, a steel cage match, Roman Reigns versus King Corbin. This should be the final match in this feud. Roman Reigns, in my opinion, will get the win, and to lead him, setting him up to look strong heading into WrestleMania season. Second and last match, we got Gauntlet match for the, I'm going to butcher this name, but the two-walk trophy. AJ Styles versus Andrade versus Bobby Lashley versus Eric Rowan versus R-Truth versus Rey Mysterio. Andrade's first match back from, well, I don't know if it'll be his first match back, but his first main match back on TV after the wellness violation. This match, I'm looking at it 2 different ways. I'm looking at that you could get a Andrade or Bobby Lashley win, and that's due to interference from The Undertaker causing AJ Styles to lose, or you get AJ Styles with the win and The Undertaker interferes after. So I think I'm looking at it either way. You have The Undertaker interfering in some way, shape, or form. 1, it's going to be right after AJ Styles wins, or 2, it will cost AJ Styles the win, which then I think they would give it to... See, I don't even want to say Andrade after getting suspended now. It could be Rey Mysterio. I don't think Eric Rowan is an option. R-Truth has, he's gotten a lot of traction. People love R-Truth's gimmick. Could it be him? Maybe. I don't think so. I think, Mysterio, Lashley, or Styles. Like I said, Styles with the win, then the immediate interference after, or Styles, due to interference, gets the loss. And then the one that I'm truly caught up on, Universal Championship match, The Fiend, Bray Wyatt versus Goldberg. Prior to 2 weeks ago, when I heard about this match maybe happening, I thought that this was just going to be a match that puts The Fiend over even more. Then he gets taken out at WrestleMania by a Roman Reigns or a John Cena. And then the more I think about it, does Goldberg come back for just one match, not to lead into WrestleMania? And if he does, if he loses this match, what is the name value? What's the reason he goes to WrestleMania to wrestle anybody? I just feel like there's no reason. If The Fiend loses to Goldberg, I don't think it's a tarnish on anything, because Goldberg is Goldberg. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a legend. He's all that. So I don't think that's a big loss. You can have a rematch down the road where you get your win back. So a lot of the headlines, reports, rumors, things like that have Bray Wyatt versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And then the more and more you look, and the more recent you look, you don't see that. You have John Cena coming back. I think what's possible, obviously I'm still 50-50 on this. I don't even want to give a winner. In my heart, I like to see The Fiend win. What might make most sense for WrestleMania would be Goldberg winning. But I think no matter what, whoever wins this match, John Cena is going to be set up for the title match at WrestleMania. Tampa is where he lives. It would be a record-breaking title reign. I think Goldberg is going to win this. If he does not win it, it will be by some sort of disqualification, or there'll be interference that costs the actual match. Could it be a triple threat? Maybe Goldberg goes in here, gets a big payday, works out, gets in ridiculous shape, and goes to WrestleMania for his last true final, I'm done. Who's next? No one's next. I'm staying at home. But this is a tough one. I'm looking forward to it. We're talking, at this point, 11 hours from right now, from when I'm recording this, to when Super Showdown's on. Looking forward to it. I will be back. That's all for this one. I'll be back next Wednesday. We're gonna go over some of the stuff that happened in Super Showdown. Let's see how good I've been pretty spot on a lot of different pay-per-views. So let's see how this one goes. I appreciate it. Make sure you go on Twitter at the CO place to go. Questions, comments, anything that we can cover, talk about. Let's talk on Twitter. Let's talk on here. That being said, enjoy Super Showdown tomorrow.